Hello everyone, and welcome to our series of theme park teases by GPD. Today we are having a talk with Bertrand, Cazes, Secretary General from Glass for Europe. First of all, Bertrand, thank you very much for taking your time and being a part of this theme park week.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to take part to this very first of these new way of sharing information in GPD. A real pleasure.
We talk a lot about glass in sustainable buildings. From your point of view, what are the European policies that we need to consider when we want to look into the future trends in glazing?
It's about energy policy and the EU climate policy. The EU's objective to save energy and become climate neutral by 2050. This will continue to have important repercussions as we renovate and construct buildings in the future. The buildings of the future, they will need to be zero emission throughout their entire life cycle. Already today, new buildings must be very energy efficient to consume little energy for heating and cooling and to reduce CO2 emissions. The novelty is that the manufacturing of these construction materials, the construction itself, and the deconstruction will need to minimize CO2 emissions as well. Zero emission buildings will become the norm in Europe. The second trend is sustainability in construction. The EU wants to strengthen roles and obligations to ensure that the construction materials become more sustainable. This includes, among other items, of course, minimizing waste, encouraging recycling, minimizing possible source of pollutions. If the legislations are focusing on the products, more generally, we have to consider a drive towards sustainability in buildings, and that will cover many more aspects.
If we start with the first trend, does the move towards zero-emission buildings risk the position of glass and largely glazed facades, particularly in tertiary buildings?
To assess zero-emission buildings, we need to look at carbon impacts in three phases, and we need to balance them together. These phases are what happens up to the building construction. That's what we call the embedded carbon. Then, during the use phase, when the building is heated and cooled, the operational carbon, and finally the end of life phase, when the building is deconstructed or demolished.
Beneath the climate aspect, what does sustainability in buildings mean, and what's in it for glazing?
There is no undisputed definition of what a sustainable building is. But we all agree that it is a building with minimal environmental impacts. We've talked about carbon and how glass is a great material in this respect. But there is more to environmental protection. In fact, glass is scoring very well on most other environmental indicators. Little water usage, little soil pollution or depletion, little waste generated, and so on. Yet, the industry looks at further improving its credential in all possible aspects. For instance, by working at greater recycling of building glass. Now, next to environmental performance, it is fundamental that we keep in mind that buildings are primarily made for human beings that will live and work in those buildings. Sustainable buildings have to ensure safety and security, a healthy indoor environment, and provide comfort and well-being to occupants. Glass ticks all the boxes. It is the sole material that brings natural light indoor and allows building occupants to have a visual horizon and a view to the outside. Sustainable buildings of the future are also going to be smart building, and glazing has a role to play also on digitalization. For example, with glazing, facilitating 5G transmitters. It is clear that glazing will remain essential to deliver truly sustainable buildings.
What do you think? Should it be the glazing sector's priorities to secure the future position of glass in these zero-emission buildings?
Clearly, the greatest challenge of all times for society is the top priority for our industry and our sector. The reduction of CO2 emissions all across the value chain, wherever possible. Second, to put in place the infrastructure required to enhance recycling, so that building glass wastes serves to produce new glazing. Finally, and third priority, not least, to continue improving all the performance and unique properties of glass and glazing to enhance people's lives and the environment. On these three key priorities, as on many others, we need the entire flat glass ecosystem to share knowledge, as you do in GPD, but also to work together, and I invite everyone to work with us in Glass for Europe.
Thank you, Bertrand. Thank you taking your time and sharing your thoughts with our audience. It was a pleasure to have you on board.